I'll introduce Tom, and if you have questions, would love to pull people in. So think about questions as Tom's talking. Tom Denison co-founded in 2019 and is CEO of SmartHealth Catalyzer, a Chicago company that builds and seeds biomedical startups around promising innovations being developed at Midwest universities and research hospitals. He also founded in 2014 and is president of SmartHealth Activator, a nonprofit 501c3 that hosts a monthly event series called BioPathways, which features prominent bio-entrepreneurs and biotech VCs in fireside chats. Tom has had a long career in sales and business development and has been part of building 3 startups that together led to more than 400 million in exits. He has an undergraduate degree in advertising from the University of Illinois, UIUC as it's called. Tom, thank you for joining us at Human Health Huddle.
All right, great to be here. And thanks for everybody for sticking around. A lot of familiar faces and a lot of new ones, but yeah, so where to get started? I think probably the
Let's
best.
start with SmartHealth Catalyzer, don't you think?
Yeah, let's start there. So I think it's worth, and this kind of dovetails quite nicely into the from the conversations we've had with Victor from M25 and I'm forgetting from Novi also.
Eric.
Yeah, Eric from Novi, in that
Yep.
we're trying to solve a really, really big problem here in the Midwest. So Victor shared all the interesting data about what's happening in venture capital and startup growth across cities in the Midwest. What I think about is sort of our unfair share of venture capital that we see in the Midwest. So what I mean by that is this, and sort of represented by this data point, is that Midwest universities and research hospitals represent about 30% of all NIH grant funding. And by the way, that's a big number. Last year was over $8 billion. Yet, when we're talking about biomedical spinouts from those same institutions and venture capital going to biomedical spinouts in the US, we get less than 6% of venture capital. So I appreciate that in the Midwest, being in Chicago, that Chicago's #1 in the Midwest, but I will tell you that Chicago barely makes it into the top 10 when we talk about venture capital across the US. So despite being the 3rd largest city in the US, we are barely number 10, might even be creeping down to number 11. So what that tells me is that we've got this quality and quantity of research that is being done at amazing institutions, yet we lack venture capital, follow-on venture capital to those biomedical spinouts. So our mission is to change that. Similar to Novi, we are a venture studio, but we do solely focused on those biomedical innovations that require regulatory approval. So therapeutic, diagnostic, biotech, medtech, you name it. Today we're working with, I believe everybody here on the call, but 50 Midwest universities and research hospitals. We've also got a very large crew, 150 plus folks who are experts across all things biomedical. And so essentially what we do is we look for promising innovations, and when we discover something, we build and seed fund a new company around that innovation. And one thing in addition to that we started up 2.5 years ago, so this year will be our 3rd annual Best of the Bio Midwest. And what that is a competition. So it's an open competition to any PI out of the 50 institutions that we're working with that believe they're working on a promising new therapeutic or med tech. And we've got an online application. We go to offline due diligence and such, leveraging our large pool of experts, and then eventually arrive at a top 10. And then what we do is have those top 10 here in Chicago that participate in a pitch event, and also meet with 10 VCs in person, one-on-one. And it's a whole lot of fun. So
you're taking applications for that now, right?
We are not now. So we will in about 2 weeks.
Okay.
So, and I will absolutely positively, everyone here will hear from me in about 2 weeks. Kathleen, I'll share that with you also.
Right,
And if we
right.
can get that out to everyone, that would be fantastic. But yeah, so
But that's not the new thing we're going to talk
no,
about.
it's not.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
it's a good setup. And the reason is this, is that so in running Best of the Bio Midwest, there is a new fund and competition that approached me, knowing the successes that we've had in Best of the Bio Midwest, and asked me to run this new fund and competition. And this is really, really interesting. So the two co-founding partners in this new fund and competition, which is called RecodeEdge, it's Recode Ventures and Lilly.
And
And
Recode Ventures has been around for a while. That's a California
yes,
venture firm. Yeah.
well, yeah, it's California slash London.
Yeah.
So yeah, they have been around for a while. They've had um, great successes. In fact, one of the quickest exits of any venture fund in the United States. But in any case, so the focus of RecodeEdge is any sort of innovation in life sciences that's AI first. So any sort of AI first in healthcare. And these are early, early stage, so pre-seed, similar to Best of the Bio Midwest. And we actually, this is live, Kathleen. So let me
Great.
share in the chat the application page. So similar process where it will start with an online application, which will then feed into offline due diligence. Once again, we've got a pool of experts in AI and life sciences, and we will arrive at a top 10. And once again, the top 10 will participate in a pitch event here in our great city of Chicago.
This is open to just Midwest or the whole country?
This is open to the entire universe.
Okay.
So no
But
matter,
the Pitt 10 Pitt companies pitch in Chicago.
that's right.
Yeah.
So given that I lean heavily into the Midwest, which is why I'm here today, I encourage everyone and anyone, please, please, please send that out to anyone who's developing something in AI first in healthcare. Please, please apply.
Tell
And
us what you mean by AI first.
so the idea that it's interesting, we were just having this conversation in the networking session prior to this, that I think Novi even mentioned that they've gotten 50 applications recently, and 10 plus of those have had AI, some sort of AI component in them. And when I say AI first, is that thinking about, so there are innovations taking place. All of a sudden, this high growth in AI, and they're like, oh man, we should bolt on AI in some way, shape, or form because that's what VCs are investing in, as opposed to starting with AI and thinking about a particular problem that they're trying to solve. So if you're thinking about, I don't want to say a common application, but a broad, sort of well-known application would be for drug discovery, as an example. So you'll see that application quite a bit. But that's what I mean by AI first.
So could it be a therapeutic that you're working on?
Absolutely.
How?
Absolutely.
How?
So if it would have to be some sort of platform. So if it is a AI solution that is developed towards selecting possible probable therapeutics with a particular modality for particular indications. So that's an example.
But what if you've got a therapeutic already?
So, and you're adding AI as a component. Is that what you're,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
how a lot of
I mean,
these universities have therapeutic kind of research.
yeah, I mean, I don't want to discourage anyone from not applying if AI was not first in the thinking, but that's sort of an afterthought. If you're sort of attaching, bolting on AI as an afterthought, it's probably not going to make it through.
So if
Uh,
you had a therapeutic though that used AI in the delivery of it, or
oh yeah, of course.
yeah.
Absolutely positively. Absolutely positively. 100%. So go ahead.
By the way, I should say to people, if you have questions, send them to me and we'll get you up here asking them as well. So
Oh, and one thing I didn't mention, so the top 10 will pitch here in Chicago. We'll also have a full day boot camp where we'll have all kinds of experts there that each one of the 10 startups will meet with. So like strategic partners or folks in R&D or regulatory experts or IP experts, other successful entrepreneurs in the space. So there'll be a full day of boot camp and activities for the top 10. And again, we will invest up to $2 million into up to 3 companies.
is we, you, and the other 2 partners?
Yes. And we want to be first money in.
And is that 2 million total, maybe
2
more?
million total.
Each
So
company?
2
Or,
million total
okay,
for split up amongst up to 3 companies.
yeah.
So that, this being our first go around, sort of fearful of committing to 3, but I'm sure there will be 3. I mean, we have not even started promoting this thing and we're already getting applications.
When's the application deadline?
There will be the first application deadline is January 7th. And then so there's a secondary process, and that will be by February 7th. But just think about January 7th. That's it. So for this application, but I highly, highly encourage folks to apply early. It is not a cumbersome application. It is not. The PI should have everything needed at their fingertips. So I would suspect, 20 minutes to apply. And again, I encourage anyone to apply early simply because we're trying to create this as much of a rolling application as possible.
So you've got these 2 things that are both happening around the same time. So the RecodeEdge and the Best of Bio Midwest,
Yeah. So, I didn't mention this too, is that the RecodeEdge pitch event and culminating events will be in April in Chicago. Best of the Bio Midwest will be in June, once again, in Chicago.
Well, let's talk about that. So they're both going to be in Chicago. And, there's been historically this feeling around the Midwest, oh, Chicago, they just want to own everything. They don't want to think about anyone else. I don't think that's true of you. I think you have an attitude about the whole region. Can you kind of tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, the reason why we're having it in Chicago is that not that we're necessarily thinking about Chicago only, is we're just thinking about making it an easy destination for people to get to.
Right.
So in particular, so last year for Best of the Bio Midwest, I mean, we had some of the VCs we had was Deerfield. We had Estella's, we had Lilly, and we had a bunch of others that flew in from around the country.
I know
So,
Bill Trainer is here from Mutual Capital Partners in Cleveland. You should probably talk to him.
oh, Bill Trainer, we'd love to have you at
Bill,
Best
can we
Midwest.
spotlight you?
I'm here.
Okay, you have to show yourself for me to be able to spotlight you, but I think Bill probably could join this. There you go.
Maybe
I
we
bet
could just
Bill has something to say about
we
it.
could put Bill on the spot and say, Bill, will you join us for Best of the Bio Midwest in June? Like, who doesn't want to come to Chicago in June?
I would love to. And if for some reason I cannot make it, I have a very capable team. Someone from MCP would be happy to help.
We should
Fabulous.
explain, Tom, Bill, tell what Capital Midwest Partner, we should explain why we're both excited about Bill being here.
Oh, geez. Yeah, we're a seed plus Series A investor exclusively in healthcare, intraoperative med techs and enterprise healthcare IT. We go relatively early. We count at 25K on up of monthly revenue non-shareholders. And we're kind of $1 million to $8 million all in check writers. We've been doing it since 2004, and we're lead or co-lead. So yeah, that's kind of our story. I was telling in the breakout group, one interesting thing is we've hired a little bit in the last few years, and we've especially been spending a lot more time with earlier stage companies at the university level, at the startup level, especially in areas where we know we can help them. And, once they get approval or an MVP, we try and get them in front of customers to give direct feedback and help them in their developmental cycle before they waste a lot of time and money and don't get down those pathways first and then have to change everything, especially on the FDA side. If you can't get customers to pay for it, it's great if you get approval, but in the grand scheme of things, who cares?
And this right here is the kind of connectivity, when you were giving those numbers at the beginning, Tom, that needs to be developed to improve those venture capital numbers, right?
That's right. And that's why, going back to your question about sort of Chicago.
Bill, I'm going to keep you here because I know you have a question in you.
So going back to your question about Chicago and beyond, and just trying to make it easy, a singular destination. So Bill's a great example of this, is that, so Best of the Bio Midwest last year, the top 10, I believe there was not a startup or PI from Chicago. So in other words, we had one from Oklahoma, we had one from Cincinnati, one from Cleveland, Minneapolis, I think Mayo Clinic, on and on and on. So it's sort of like, how can we make it easy for Bill to get his arms around all the activity that's happening in the Midwest, right? And so it's more about making an easy, simplified destination, an event, where Bill can get, a front row seat on these kind of innovations that maybe he can't make it to Medical College of Wisconsin, or maybe he can't make it to Ann Arbor or,
Oh, you
Washington.
don't believe Bill can be everywhere?
Well, maybe he can. Maybe he has his own plane. That would be helpful. But yeah, it's hard, and we know it's hard. Believe me. I used to actually have this vision that of the 50 institutions that we work with, of going around and driving, to each one and visiting and all of that. And then COVID came along, and I'm like, oh my God, now I just can do this, and I can be.
When you say the 50 institutions, can any institution work with you in the Midwest, or is it
Any
limited?
institution? Yeah. I say 50, and everybody here would know who they are. They're mostly universities. We do work with Mayo, Cleveland Clinic, Cincinnati Children's, I think, is on here also, and Nationwide in Ohio. Cincinnati Children's, by the way, is the #1 children's hospital in the world, FYI. Michigan, by the way, I grew up in Ohio, so I hesitate to say this, but Michigan, year in and year out, is #2 in NIH grant funding, year in and year out. #2 in the country. And people don't realize that. So that's what we're trying to do, is sort of a hub and spoke kind of approach. We're the hub, spokes going out to all these different institutions.
Thanks, you guys. We are at our stop time, and we want to be respectful of that. So what I'm going to do, thank you so much. We're going to turn off the recording. And I'm